Hi, my name is Andre Sarmiento, and this is my final Capstone project. The project consists of a Windows domain DNS exchange server. This is located on the Blue network, and its IP address is going to be 192.168.1.1. Now I also installed the Windows Server 2016 backup server. This is on the Green network, and its relative IP address is 192.168.3.2. The Windows 10 node is installed on the yellow network and is allowed for internal communication only. The IP address of the Windows 10 node is 192.168.4.2. I have a Windows Server 2016 web server up, and that's going to be in my DMZ, also known as the red network, and the IP address for the web server is 192.168.5.2. The last network that my CentOS router, located in the middle, is in control of is going to be the guest network, which allows communications for anyone on the subnet of 192.168.6 subnet. I have also, for communication for the internal network to communicate outside, have set up a DHCP on a bridged network on my CentOS router. For the capstone to fully work, the virtual machines need to be initiated in a certain order. The first virtual machine that needs to start is the soft router. This is gonna make sure that the networks are be able to be connected properly. If not, then we may have problems in the future trying to access the outside world. So thankfully, it's a quick CentOS startup, so this shouldn't take too long. And this is the main virtual machine that needs to be started before everything else. Once and only once this is started, it is okay to start initiating the other virtual machines. However, I personally really like to start the Windows Server 2016 Exchange server because that's how all of my other machines can log on to the domain. So I'm going to start this one and I'm going to skip forward in the video till this is fully started. Now this is finally loaded. We can now start to load all of the other virtual machines in any order. Now very quickly I do want to speak about the configurations of my machines. The soft router has 2 gigs of RAM, only one processor dedicated to it, and it has 6 networks connected to it. The first one's the bridged adapter that I have set up with DHCP to communicate to the outside world. I have an internal blue network, which is for the Exchange server. I have the internal green network, which is for the backups server. I have the internal network yellow set up for the Windows 10 node, and I have the internal network red set up for the web server. And lastly, the internal network gray, which is considered to be my guest network. Now, I had some difficulty adding the last two network adapters, adapter number 5 and number 6, because I had to use the VBox manage to be able to activate them. Because if we see inside the network, there's only 4 tabs available, um, but within the config file, there are up to 8 available network adapters. So that's how I was able to get the extra 2 network adapters. So right now, I'm going to demonstrate the Exchange server. There are 2 ways that an administrator can configure an Exchange server. The first way is going to be through the CLI, and the second way is going to be through the Exchange Admin Center web app. I like to use the Admin Center web app because it just makes it a little bit easier. So we're going to log in with administrative credentials. The password is admin pass with a capital A, a capital P, and an @ symbol. So when I'm logged in to my Exchange server, I'm going to start up an instance of Internet Explorer, and I'm going to go to the Exchange Admin Center web app. I need to make sure that I use a secure HTTP protocol, and I'm going to go to the IP address of my domain controller or my Exchange server. So I'm going to go to ECP to be able to get to the Exchange Admin Center web app. Because we are running in a test environment, we don't have to worry about these security certificates. Right here, I'm going to log in with administrative rights, and the password is admin pass with a capital A and a capital P and an @ symbol. This right here tells me all of the mailboxes that has been created, and as you can see, I only have 3. These are all of the users I have in my current Active Directory. And now let's see if I have been able to send an email. So the first thing I have to do is go to another website to access my mailbox. So that's going to be HTTPS. Again, we need to make sure we use the secured protocol. And that's going to be 192.168.1.1. And that's to get to the IP address of the Exchange server. And then we're going to move on to the OWA. Right here, I'm going to log in with the administrator and see what mail has gone through there. Again, with admin pass. And here we're able to see that we have all this mail coming through. This was sent earlier today. Let's see if I can send a new one. I'm just using an arbitrary number. And here we can see it's sent. Test number 21. So let's go see what Fresh Prince has going on with his mailbox. The password for Fresh Prince is user pass because he's only a user, and that's a capital U, a capital P, and an @ symbol. Well, here's the test number 21 that the administrator sent, and I guess Will Smith likes to communicate with his alter ego. Now, since I'm on this machine, I would like to take this opportunity to demonstrate the Active Directory users and computers and the DNS. So we can close down this instance of Internet Explorer, and let's start by exploring our users and computers. So right now I've opened up to my Hamilton directory. As you can see, there's Fresh Prince and Will Smith. I want to go take a look to see what we have in the computers. And here you can see the three computers that we have: the desktop, a backup, and then a web server. Now from here, I did want to explore our DNS. So let us go do that. Going back into tools from our server manager and opening up the DNS applet. From here, we want to make sure we're going into the forward lookup zones, and we're clicking neat local. Here we're able to see the DNS configuration that has been set up. The IMAP and SMTP and webmail all need to be set up properly so that the Exchange server can work properly. Now right here we do see the desktop and its relative IP address along with the domain controller and the backup. From here, I do want to show that the DNS is working. So I'm going to open up my Windows 10 machine. I'm going to log in with administrative rights. Again, that's admin pass. And I'm going to start up a command prompt and show my IP config. So it is DHCP enabled, auto configuration, and my DNS is right here. Now from here, I am going to try and ping my Active Directory domain controller. And I'm able to do that. I want to also go to my web server backup, log in with its administrative credentials, open up a command prompt, and show the IP configuration for this. This one is not DHCP configured because it is our backup, but we do have the DNS pointing properly to that. So let me see if I can ping my Active Directory domain controller. My final test to show that the DNS is working properly is to ping my backup server from my Windows 10 node. So this is the name of the backup server, and that's its relative IP address. there we are. So right now I do want to show that my IIS web server 2016 is up and running. So I'm first going to access it from the website or from the web server itself. So I'm logging in with administrative credentials, admin pass. I'm going to start up an Internet Explorer. And this time we're not using the secure protocol, we're just using your regular HTTP because we're only pulling a website. And we're going to go to the IP address 192.168.5.2, and here we're able to pull it. I want to quickly show the IP address for this. So I am going to access this from my Windows backup machine. And again, it's 192.168.5.2. I might as well show it on the Exchange server. So again, it is HTTP 192.168.5.2. And now I want to access it from my host machine. This is going to show that the outside world is able to communicate with my internal hosted website. But for me to do that, I first have to find out the IP address that has been given to my router. So the first thing I'm going to do is log into the root administrator for the soft router. So not listed and root, and the password is admin pass. And from here, there are two different ways that I can show my IP address. The first one is by doing ifconfig, but that gives me a little bit too much information and makes it harder for me to be able to tell what my IP address is. So I actually like to use the GUI. To do that, I went and clicked my settings at the top right, wired connection and network settings. That opened up this interface. And now I'm going to be able, or I need to make sure that I use the ENP0S3 interface, because that's the one that is connected to the bridge. And I use the IP address right there. Now, this is my firewall and my router, and I have dynamic NAT set up. So whenever there's a request for your regular HTTP website sent to this IP address, it knows to grab that and automatically forward it to the same to the same port, but to the web server 192.168.5.2. So let me open up my Internet Explorer. I'm going to go to http 192.168.2.191 colon 80, and there I am accessing the web server. So now the very last thing that we have to display for this is going to be the DHCP configuration that I have set on my router. So I'm going to go to gedit dh or slash etc slash dhcp slash dhcpd dot conf. When I go in here, um, This is actually pretty interesting. I had to go with CentOS 7 instead of CentOS 6, although I was more familiar with CentOS 6, because the DHCP service in CentOS 7 allows me to separate subnets according to interface. So any of these if any device or node were to connect to the interface ENPOS 8, then it will automatically receive an IP address from this range right here, 192.168.1.3 up to 1.5. Same thing goes for the interface ENP0S9. They would receive an IP address from the subnet 192.168.3.0, and if you connect to another interface ENP0S10, you get a subnet of 192.168.4.0. Likewise, for the ENP0S16, you get a subnet IP address of 192.168.5.0. And the last is the guest interface, which gives you a subnet of 192.168.6.0. So now the last thing that I have to display is that my guest network is up and running. The easiest way for me to test that is to um, show the two separate interfaces that I have on the Windows 10 node. So I'm logging in with administrative rights, admin pass, and all I'm really doing is going to the VirtualBox, going to my Windows 10 node settings, starting the network, and under advanced I'm going to pull the yellow cable and I'm going to put in the gray cable or connect the gray network, internal network. That is effectively removing it from the yellow network and connecting it into the gray network, which is my guest. So from here, I'm going to show the new IP address configurations because I'm scrolling up back over here and we see it's on the old configuration is 192.168.4.1. The new configuration is 192.168.6.2 with DHCP enabled, and I'm going to try and ping my internal domain controller, and we're not able to do that. I want to try it by name, and that's not working either. So what I want to do now is change the connections over one more time on the Windows 10 machine. So I'm disconnecting it from the gray network and reconnecting it into the yellow network. We can see over here that my internet is changing. Let's take a look at the IP address. Back to 4.2. Let me try and ping there. It allows me. Let me try and do it by name. And it allows me. Now let me show you that I can get internet connection from the outside world using the guest network. Okay. Again, now let us wait for it to connect. IP address back to 6.2 is my IP address. and ping Google. Thank you so much, and this is the completion of my capstone.